Season of Discovery has only been out for literally 1 week, and we're already seeing some cheese strategies that you can use inside of the raid to make some of the fights extremely easy. Now, of course, the raid isn't necessarily that hard in itself, but these are strategies that pretty much everyone will use until they're either patched out, just to make sure that you can ignore some of the mechanics. And before we even look at the raid itself and the fights that we're gonna cheese, I do want to point out that if you are worried about your class and how it's performing, there is actually a pretty solid stratification of how the classes are performing now on Warcraft logs. The class that was performing the best early on for like 2 days was by far Melee Hunter, but now we are finally seeing some Warlocks come in on their second raid and absolutely dumpster the raid, as well as mages and even some warriors and priests are peeking up in there. So we're gonna have to see how things pan out as classes get a little bit more gear, especially as we know that Melee do have to deal with the massive amounts of armor in the raid. That being said, let's dive right in. All right, so the boss we're gonna cheese today is the third to last boss in the raid. This is Electrocutioner 3000. He's right here as the skull, and what we're gonna do is actually abuse line of sight, and that's gonna be by tanking the boss right here along this inner wall and using this pillar that you're seeing right in the background as the line of sight spot. And you are gonna notice that the boss's main mechanic targets the furthest player away from him to do the chain lightning effect. This effect should arc towards 2 other players and make sure that they put a debuff on themselves so that they pretty much, like, if they get hit by it again, they get one shot. But if you LOS this, you can see in the background, one of our healers is actually consistently being targeted by the static arc and then coming back out as the boss is finishing the cast. If you keep doing this, the boss literally will do nothing. Use this strategy now because it's definitely going to get patched. This is the most ridiculous cheese strategy. Also, if the tank does get targeted by the negative ability, if melee range or melee stay at max melee range, then they should be fine and not have any issues. Now, you might notice on the meters that Hunter is doing the most damage. I'm even losing 10% damage because I'm staying an aspect of the Viper because I was just trying to explain the strategy to people. But what's happening in my raid, if you're looking at this, and probably most of everybody's raids, is that you probably have a very, very suboptimal group composition. We have 3 freshly dinged warriors that just hit level 40 right before this. We have no Curse of Recklessness. We have no leader of the pack for crit for any of the warriors or crit for anyone really. And we also don't have paladins for paladin buffs. So this raid composition is grief for basically everybody, but this is a very, very easy cheese strategy that everyone can use to deal with the Electrocutioner. Now let's look at the second to last boss. Now, the mechanical menagerie can be a bit of a doozy if you are in a group that has a poorly optimized raid composition, like a shadow priest in your raid and or a healing druid can make the fight so much easier. But one of the things I missed in my BFD raid guide was essentially that these bosses will cast an ability, all of them, and if any of the other bosses are within 15 yards, they also receive that buff. That would be as the mechanical sheep does basically a lightning reflect, kind of like what you saw from Lorgus Jet and BFD. The easiest way to deal with this encounter, if you are not just trying to pump it down, cleave, go crazy, it is going to be to spread the bosses all out around 15 yards. This means you will have to keep kiting away from the actual sheep because that kind of just keeps walking in a direction that it wants towards people that it wants, and it will AoE stun them. But you will just spread out the bosses, have someone focus on tanking each of them, and have someone focus on DPSing each of them individually, as well as somebody that can take out the eggs if they are the DPS person for the actual chicken. If you do this, it is a lot slower than an ideal kill, but it is a lot easier and a lot more reliable to just utilize more tanks. Again, as you see, we do not have a very good composition in this group. Everybody was hitting 40 on their third characters in this raid, and tomorrow I will go in for a real raid with real characters that actually have gear and an actual composition, but all of the warriors are like below 100 DPS here. Again, this is super suboptimal, especially for the warriors, and warriors can do very, very well in this raid, even with the actual issues of the armor of all of the bosses. Although I'm kind of hopeful that they fix the armor issues. Like, I don't know what's going on there. And that's just straight up how to cheese or trivialize 2 of the hardest encounters in the new raid. I hope you guys like this, and you don't have to use these strategies. Hopefully they will get patched soon, and we'll also end up kind of just blowing through things as we get gear, so don't worry if you've struggled at all. I will have a new melee hunter guide out very, very soon. I have to do a raid on the hunter with an actual group to be able to showcase some of the potentials and the different specializations. But if you want to stay up to date with that or anything Season of Discovery, of course, make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. I'll see you guys all on the next one, and good luck out there.